This lesson is on subtracting with regrouping, which regrouping means borrowing, going next door to borrow from another number. So if I have a problem like 1087 minus 569, most students by now know the basic process of subtracting, because this is a third grade skill that they should have when they come to fourth grade, but everybody needs a little bit of review. So you can't take 9 from 7 because 9 is bigger than 7. So you don't have 9 to take away. So what you do is you have to go next door to borrow. Alright? When I go next door to borrow, 8 has some to give me. So I'm going to take one from a friend, move one over, and bring up the other 7. So now instead of 7, I have 17 because I've taken one from the tens place and moved it over. So now I have 17. So 17 minus 9 I can do because 17 is bigger than 9. So 17 minus 9 is 8. Now I move to the next column. 7 minus 6 is 1. 0 minus 5 I can't do because I can't take 5 from nothing. So now I have to take one from a friend, move one over, and bring up the 0. So now instead of 0 I have 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 0 minus 0 is 0. So my answer for this problem is 518. It is very important that students know to do one column of subtraction at a time, because if they start focusing on these numbers from the beginning, then they're very likely to mess up over here. So please remind your students and your children to do one column at a time. Take care of one thing at a time. Now, this one was relatively simple because we don't have to borrow from a 0. But let's do one where we do have to take from a 0. If I have 2,000 minus 199. There is a graph that a colleague of mine made up that I used to help solve this problem. And what it involves is chunking numbers together and simplifying how they replace these numbers on the top. Now children tend to do the Zorro method, where they just go and replace those numbers at the top. Well, that causes a lot of problems in fourth grade because it leads to sloppy work. So instead we're going to do a step-by-step song to talk them through the borrowing process for zeros. Now how they start is one column at a time. They can't take 9 from nothing. So they have to go next door to borrow, but he doesn't have any. So I slide on over to a number with plenty and I box it. Then I take one away, I move the one over, and the other number stays, word. That's the wrap. Now what we did was, we went next door to take one away from 0, but 0 doesn't have anything to give me, he's empty. So we slide over to the next number that has some to give me, and that would be the 2. And we box up everything from there. So instead of 0s and 2s, I'm now looking at 200 in the box. Then I take one away from 200 to give me 199. Then I move the one over that I borrowed, and I keep the number on the bottom. The other number stays. So now I have 10 instead of 0. Now I do basic subtraction, one column at a time. 10 minus 9 is 1, 9 minus 9 is 0, 9 minus 1 is 8, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So my answer is 1,801. Let's look at a different problem. If I have 2,103 minus 465. Once again, I encourage the students to do one column at a time. I cannot take 5 from 3 because 5 is bigger than 3. So I go next door to borrow, but he doesn't have any. So I slide on over to a number with plenty and I box it. Then I take one away, I move the one over, and the other number stays. Now for this problem we did not box all the way to the 2 because the 1 is the next number with plenty. So we start with the 0, box to the next number with plenty, and take one away. That will give me 9. Then I move the one that I borrowed over and bring up the other numbers so that it stays. And now I have 13 instead of 5. So now I take 13 minus 5 is 8. Once again, one column at a time. 9 minus 6 is 3. You cannot take 4 away from nothing. So I have to start all over. One column at a time is so important. Now I take one from a friend because he has something to give me. I move one over and I keep the 0. Now I have 10 to take from. So I take 4 from 10 and that's 6. And 1 minus 0 is 1. So 1,638. Let's do another example. If I have 1,032 minus 856. I cannot take 6 from 2 because 6 is the bigger number. So I go next door. 3 has some to give me, so I take one from a friend, move one over, bring up the 2. Now I have 12 to take from. One column at a time. 12 minus 6 is 6. Now I move to the next column. I can't take 5 from 2 because 5 is bigger than 2. So I need to borrow from my neighbor. I go next door to borrow, but he doesn't have any. So I slide on over to the number with plenty and I box it. Then I take one away, I move the 1 over, and the other number stays. So now instead of 2, I have 12, and I've taken 1 away from the 10 to give me 9 on the top. 12 minus 5 is 7. 9 minus 8 is 1, and 0 minus 0 is 0. So 176. Let's do one more example. If I have 1,320 minus 441. It's important that students understand the difference between when they borrow from 0 and when they borrow to 0. They can't take 1 away from nothing, so they have to go next door. Now, they should not box for this problem because 2 has something to give me. I don't have to box anything. All I have to do is take 1 from the 2, take 1 from a friend, move 1 over, and bring up the 0. So now instead of 0, I have 10. One column at a time. 10 minus 1 is 9. 1 minus 4 I can't do because 4 is bigger than 1. So I need to borrow again. I go next door. 3 has some to give me, so again, I don't have to box. I take 1 from a friend, move 1 over, and keep the 1. So now I have 11 instead of 1. 11 minus 4 is 7. Now move to the next column. I can't take 4 from 2, so again, I have to borrow. But I do not box because 1 has something to give me. So I take 1 from a friend, move 1 over, and keep the 2. Then again, I subtract this column. 12 minus 4 is 8. 0 minus 0 is 0. So my answer is 879. Please make sure that students know the difference between when they box and when they just borrow.